Welcome to the On Your Mind podcast, where we believe mental illness can be temporary and transformative. Stay tuned for innovative, effective tools from experts in the field of mental health. Hosted by Timothy J. Hayes, psychologist. This podcast aims to change the narrative around mental illness. Move from a place of fear to a place of hope and solutions. Here on Your Mind.
My guest today is Dan Hostetler, a self-described alcoholic in recovery, and Dan runs a free harm reduction behavioral addiction treatment center on Chicago's West Side. He tells us his organization provides the highest level of addiction treatment services available anywhere to those who cannot afford to pay for them while assisting them with housing and employment. Dan, welcome. Thanks for joining us here this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Hayes.
Great to see you. You're looking good.
Yeah, same here. You're looking great yourself.
So what's new over at Above and Beyond Family Center?
Well, we have a lot of things new. We have quite a bit going on here, quite a bit of exciting stuff. We have, we're always interested in the origins of where these addictions come from. And a lot of them come from early childhood trauma, it's our belief. And so we're looking at how that might manifest, how that might really play its way out through a person's life and end up in substance use disorder. So one of the things that we were curious always about is literacy, because we have a lot of people that are early school dropouts. We have a lot of our patients here dropped out at very early years. A lot of them do not have high school diplomas. And so we've been offering for years a GED program. And we never had a big number of takers, even though we have a huge number of people that have not completed high school. So it's been frustrating, and we have a Vista volunteer. She's got her master's degree in education, and she's really taken a deep dive in this to try to figure out why we don't get more participation in this. And we had a hunch that we had maybe a prevalence of dyslexia. So we have been screening for dyslexia. And as we have screened for dyslexia, so this is not only new patients coming in, but we have about 250 active patients at any one time. So we've gone through and done over 100 screenings right now. And we have, this is all recent, we have a little over 60% screen positive for dyslexia. So that's a pretty big number, 60%. And so now we're in the process of doing the correlation between screening and diagnosis between those two to see what that correlation is. And we lose about 5%. There are 4 other disorders that we've come up with. So we've come up with now a number of partners that we can work with, other nonprofit organizations that we can refer them to so that they can get some benefit from it. Our way of disclosing what dyslexia is very healing to them. So they have indicated to us that they're extremely appreciative. They now have answers that they didn't have before. We've had a number of them leave after their groups for the day and then come back the next day with all kinds of questions and ideas. And it helps them put the puzzle pieces back together again in a better way. It seems like some of them are just very, very happy and very demonstrative of that. So now it comes down to what we can do for them. And we're interested in those pieces that cross over into substance use disorder, which are going to be areas of self-esteem. Many times they will underesteem themselves, or they will disdain themselves. They'll develop this self-hatred or lack of acceptance. Can you hear that?
Barely.
Okay. So we have to work with them on these things to let them know that this is a disorder. There are things that can be done. We're teaching them about what the ADA is, Americans with Disabilities Act, how dyslexia falls into that, how potential employers are um, required to make reasonable accommodation, what those words mean, reasonable accommodation, how they can kind of insist on having an interview, even though interviews may be closed, if they disclose themselves as having a diagnosis of dyslexia. So we're empowering them in ways to find their voice and go out into the world. And since there's so very little information available on middle age or older age dyslexia, and what happens when this condition has been embedded in you for all these years. I mean, all the information and research is done on childhood, on school, early school, how to handle it there, but there's really virtually almost nothing as far as later in life. So we're kind of writing that book ourselves, and we're discovering that we can help them reframe this by giving them suggestions on how they might think about it in a more healthy fashion. And we found that the response is overwhelmingly positive. In addition to that, it helps the counselors here know that you have a condition here. You have a neurological disorder, and so we have had enough of this. And this may not be a permanent position here, but we have assigned somebody to the position of neurodiversity coordinator. And this is somebody who knows all the resources that are available. And I'm only naming one disorder. I'm about to name a second one. But looking at all the resources that are available, what can we expect to be able to help them and stay within the confines of our licensing? We're not a mental health organization, but we know many other mental health organizations, and of course there's a plethora of other organizations that can really give them great assistance.
Well, one of the biggest things about that you're talking about, just with that one diagnosis, dyslexia, one of the biggest things is people mistakenly believe that it's an indicator of a lower intelligence.
Yeah.
So they come to believe that they are not smart.
Yeah.
Not that they're not smart enough, that they're just not smart.
Yeah.
And what the kind of work you're doing when the people let it in is let them realize and then tap into and utilize more of their actual intelligence.
That's right. And we do this, we have a couple evaluations that we give of screenings. One of them in particular we use this screening because it's quick. You can get through it pretty quickly. It's very colorful. It gives charts and graphs. It's out of England, and it goes through all the positives that come through. So it will actually rate them on all the positive things. For example, they have to do workarounds on all of these things that ordinary people don't have to do. So they have to figure ways out of putting sentences together, and there is a spectrum in dyslexia. So you might have entire sentences reversed, you might have words reversed. There are sometimes where middle letters disappear, sometimes the middle of pages disappear, sometimes words or letters melt off pages. So you have just a lot of different manifestations of the same thing, and that child usually has to work very hard to try to figure out what's on that page and what do they want out of me, what's supposed to happen here, so I can mimic normalcy. I won't stick out. I won't be the black sheep. And so they work these things out, and it's almost like they have a heightened sense of creativity. So we let them know that you've got now special powers, that the rest of us don't have, and these shine. And they love hearing that because they can, a lot of them recognize that they've been able to do that. They know that, but they don't know that anyone else knows that. And it's kind of been this dirty little secret that they've had all these years. Exactly with what you're talking about, Tim. They're so happy to know they're not stupid. They feel like it's really validating. So that's one thing we're doing. I'll pick another one because this is really controversial. And we have had some really overt disapproval of what we're doing, and I don't want to talk long on it, but I've got a lot to say about it. So we have noticed symptoms of dissociative identity disorder, DID, and we're well aware of the fact that all psychology classes teach. It's very rare, not even 200,000 cases in the United States. Sybil really ran that whole thing into the ground, and then the sequential book that came out after both of their deaths from an investigative reporter that kind of discredited that whole thing. And so it's not really looked at as an actual disorder. At least there are many people in the psychology industry that don't consider it is, but it is very real. That's what
let me just help you here a little bit. The kind of thing you're talking about with Sybil is not really the dissociative identity disorder. It's an extreme version where there's that multiple personality disorders. But the dissociative identity disorder is like you were talking about with dyslexia. There's this range of things from one extreme to the other. And it's very common that people have the symptoms of or the patterns of disassociation. And that's not what was happening in the Sybil book. So
Okay.
A lot of people mix those two up, as you're saying. That's going to be the root of a lot of your negative pushback, is if people think when you talk about dissociative identity disorder, if people think you're talking about multiple personality disorder, they're going to have a lot of pushback. The two things are not the same.
Well, what I am talking about is multiple personality disorder. It used to be called that. Now it's called dissociative identity disorder. And we have dissociative disorder, DD. We have DDNOS, dissociative disorder not otherwise specified. We have a lot of books here. We've been through a lot of books. Janine Fisher, who was Bessel van der Kolk's clinical director for years, has a book on the subject. We have the guy who wrote the SCID-D assessment that we use. It takes about an hour. It's a structured interview. It's kind of a tedious thing that we go through. So we use the DES right out of the DSM-5 to do the initial screening. So we've ended up with about 26% of our patients screening positive for DID, which is multiple personality disorder.
Okay.
So this is very, very strange.
And what percentage again do you have?
26%.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it would be under 1%. It'd be a fraction of a percent in normal society. So it's our hypothesis that we have these people sliding down the scale, losing jobs, losing relationships, disappearing into prisons, coming out of prisons. They're actually operating at the very lowest level that nobody ever really surveys, nobody really takes a look at. And we can see that there are authentic episodes of people not remembering things they said a little while ago. And, we know all the symptoms. We've really made ourselves quite knowledgeable about this. We have a trauma expert in the building, and we're in the process now of taking those 26% and seeing what percentage actually go to diagnosis. And the diagnosis that we're looking for, we're not disclosing the diagnosis to the patient. It is unhelpful. We are not going to be able to give them any assistance on that. There is really no place in Chicago that we found that we can refer them to. And it's frequently misdiagnosed as schizophrenia, borderline personality disorder, or bipolar. And all of the medications of those three disorders, those are kind of lazy diagnoses, but they exacerbate the symptoms of DID.
Exactly.
They make it worse. So what we're doing is we're able to get into Dick Schwartz's
internal family
level 1
systems
training at IFS. The only thing we're going to be able to do is do an internal marking on their record. It helps us empathetically know that whether we have a dissociative disorder or we have varieties of it that run all the way up to full spectrum, just like you were saying before, because not all of those 26% are going to diagnose as DID. They're just not going to. And we don't have the time to be able to do all of that because those are tedious diagnoses. And then we can't do anything. And it's harmful to give them that diagnosis and then show them the door, because we're not equipped to be able to give the therapeutic assistance that they need. But there are some things that we can do to help them. So number one, it helps us empathetically, because we know that really substance use disorder is a form of dissociation. They're either drinking to blot it out, or they want to dissociate from their problems or the issues that they have, whether they're internal in their own heads or whether they're external in the circumstances that they've created in their own lives, it is a form of dissociation. So if we can begin introducing the language of parts, which we've already started a glossary of this. As I said, we're using a lot of reference and evidence-based material for this, and we're coming up with our own languaging of this. And then we're going to start training our staff. We don't lose anything with that at all. I mean, it embraces, and we're talking about, just the general language of saying, well, it sounds like you might, a part of you says this. It sounds like it's fighting another part of you that says that. It's less stigmatizing. It's easier to make reference to this.
And then from the perspective of empathizing, as you're talking about, if you don't understand that that's a very powerful process inside the person, and you're just looking at the surface interactions, you're most likely to label it manipulation, lying, deception for the purpose of personal gain, etc.
Well, when you look at this, they claim, Gabor Mate, all of the people that have gotten into these claim that this happens usually before age 6, the majority of it, and that this is splitting that it's called. And these splittings usually happen as protective mechanisms. So they're all for the benefit of the individual. All of them are trying to help that true self that's in there. And, one of the differences between schizophrenia is each one of these trauma capsules, they're very simple personalities. They only do the same thing over and over. They're not full-blown personalities. And they used to be called alters. We call them parts. It's just more useful for us to be able to do. If you realize that you might be talking to one part that's not talking to another part, because that's really the biggest difference, is they don't share memory between the two of them. And we're trying to blend them. We're trying to teach them how to be observant from a dual standpoint. And this will help everybody, So if we're talking about them, we talk about learning to love yourself anyway. So really all we're talking about is to learn to love all your parts. And so that will help improve us as an organization, and it will have a better effect on all of this dissociative disorder, however it ends up diagnosing out, because I know it's not going to end up 26%, I'm certain. But it's still new enough in what we're doing that I don't have any kind of results to give you on that. But those are two things that we're doing that are pretty new.
Great.
And we're also starting a new class on, or a new group on healing, racial healing. And so we've got a piece you were talking about last night, the riots in Washington. I got a call from him this morning saying what would have happened if those riots were with African Americans, with Black community, and there probably would have been 1,000 arrested. There would have been hundreds of injuries and so forth. And as it was, only 13 people were arrested, and that was his viewpoint. So I said, well, why don't you turn that into a group and bring it in here, turn that into some material that we can present and have in our group, because he's focusing on oppression trauma and trauma that just comes from the race, the body that you're born into, what accompanies that, the press.
Yeah, there's a wonderful book, a young man who's written about that, the trauma that we carry in our bodies. The title isn't coming right to mind, but it's and it's all based on the racial identity.
Yeah.
I think it's My Grandmother's Hands. Have you heard about that book?
No, it couldn't be, but I'm going to write that down. You always give me the best advice, Tim. My Grandmother's Hands. That sounds familiar. Well, listen, what I was thinking was, if you want, I don't know if you have any other questions, maybe we could take a walk around the place.
I'd love to take the walk around the place. Let me just say, came right up in my Kindle. It's My Grandmother's Hands, subtitled Racialized Trauma and the Pathway to Mending Our Hearts and Bodies. Resmaa Menakem, Resmaa, last name Menakem. And it's exactly what you're talking about. This is, Resmaa has been working with studying trauma and studying basically how all of us, when we go through something that we feel is too intense, we download energies from that we carry with us in our energy system.
Wow. I'm really glad I brought it up.
Well, so let's take a tour. Let's see what you have.
All right.
You'd like to show us here.
What I'm going to do is, so I don't break our ears, I'm going to just turn off.
We'll mute that.
Turn on my mic over here. And turn off the video. And now, to see if you can see me.
We have you.
It looks like we can see each other. And all I have to do is turn my volume up. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to try to keep this as, let's see, I'll have to turn my screen, see if I can figure out how to do that. Oh, I may not be able to do that.
Do you have,
so I may have to turn this
like an 8 or a 9-year-old somewhere? They
I'm
could
not
do
going
it
to
for
be
you.
able to see it. That's the only thing I wanted to do, because it would be useful if I could switch this around so that I could, yeah, that's what I need. I need an 8-year-old. All right, so I'm just going to have to turn this around like this, and you'll have to tell me what you can see and what you can't see. So this is our
We're kind of pointed high towards. There you go.
You see this when you come in, and this is Chester. We don't have anybody in the entry area here. This is Herman, and Herman's got his police badge on. I don't know if you can read that, but that's an above and beyond. I'm not. There we go. Is it?
And look at this too.
Yeah, Green Bay Packers. So, huh? Put a mask on. You mind holding that for a second?
Yeah. So Dan
Maybe-
came out and spoke to the COVID police, and it turns out he didn't have a mask on.
And so, do you know how to switch the screen for him on his
Yeah.
tablet?
Yeah. There you go.
There you go. Thank you much.
Okay, beautiful. There we go. And that's Steven. Steven is from the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. He is at the front desk. He's the one that meets everybody when they come in.
Welcome,
This is
Steve.
Leola.
Welcome, Leola.
And so over here we have a board that has all of our groups on it every day, and it has this a little bit of a blueprint of the building. And you can see today we have overcoming procrastination, which is using a form of our ABT, art therapy. We have coming of age, which is dealing with people over 65 and addiction. We have hope, group on hope. We have intergenerational trauma. We have trauma, 2 different groups in trauma. And this is, for example, listed in the art museum room. So we'll take a walk over in the art museum room so you can see that. And this is working down the corridor that everybody walks into when they come in. And hello. Oh, and here's one of the banners that we have up here for our racial healing class. And this is Emmanuel Acho, the author of this, the book. We put this up in the room when we have that group. So this is a typical room. This is a meeting room. And we have a big 82-inch screen in here that we use for Zoom groups and so forth. And we have people in here that are, I think that's an art therapy group. And this is, they have pulled the blinds here on this room, so I can't really know who's in this room here, but this is going to be rage reduction, I believe. And moving into a little kitchenette area in the back, and we have breakfast and lunch here. We just got a donation of a bunch of fighter bars today. These are sold at Whole Foods, $3.99 a piece, and the Gloria Thenis is the owner of that, and she drops those off for us. They have to be frozen. She just dropped off this morning. And so we have a little kitchenette area that we do serving back here. We go through a lot of coffee, and we have a garden in the back. It's a raised bed garden, so we do a lot of our own gardening, pull our own vegetables out of it because we're in a food desert. We have breakfast and lunch, and we don't serve meat. We don't serve dairy or refined sugar.
trying to keep it healthy. This is a presentation that we did at Lurie Hospital on horticultural therapy. That is pretty original to us. We got a grant from Northwestern University to do that. And then over here we have an area that's like a little library, kind of a holding area. These are people that we have lost through overdose or suicide or other health issues, but it's only, I'm sure, a portion. Over here we have the 12 steps of AA in the middle there, and then we have those same 12 steps run through a number of other filters. Next to it is rational 12 steps. Then over here we have trauma-informed 12 steps, humanist 12 steps, atheist agnostic 12 steps, and Buddhist 12 steps. Same 12 steps, just run through different filters. And so just walking over here, this is a new area that we've just kind of renovated that we're going to be using for healthcare. It's got a black light at the front. We don't have the lights on right now, but there are 3 examination rooms down there, and we're going to be using this for healthcare. And so we have some steps that we're going to be walking up here to the 2nd floor where we have a kitchen. And in our kitchen is where we take donations and we make breakfast and lunch up here and then bring it down. So we serve about 60, 70 breakfasts and lunches a day. So we have this room up here, and there's Paige and Anna and Stephanie. So we do housing and employment up here as well. And we have a kitchen over here that we cook for the people that come in. We serve all of this for free. Because if for them to leave, we wouldn't see them back again. There's no restaurants or no grocery stores on the west side where we are. This is Peyton running up the stairs. And then we have another group here. This is the art museum room, and I'm going to be quiet when we walk in here because we have a group in progress.
Our calves here. Take a nice deep breath in. You want our tippy toes, you want to get a little extra.
Magnificent.
Yeah, they're doing a meditation, and I didn't want to say anything while they were doing that. And so we have one little place over here. Walking back down the same hallway. This is a pretty interesting hallway because it forces a lot of interactions. As you can see, hopefully you can see, people get along here really well. And so this area over here is the other side of that art museum room that we were just in. And then we have another room over here where we have another group, and then over on the side here we have tattoo transformation. So we have a lot of people that have made very bad decisions as far as skin art is concerned, and we help them transform that into something that's more positive. You know, they have to choose a positive aspect of their lives, and we help them with that. So
yeah, there's a situation like that. People say, your ass need to go to treatment. You need help. Fuck you, I don't need no help. Your ass.
So there we go.
Well, from everyone that I've heard anything about Above and Beyond, one of the things that's so impressive is the level of acceptance and respect that you engender with everybody who works there and the people who are getting services there. So when you say, you know, we get along here and there's a lot of interaction, I think it's very clear why.
There's a level of us, when we talk to them, we will mirror them in many ways, and we'll repeat back to them what they've said to make sure we're there. We're not so quick with advice. A lot of times it's healing for them just to feel heard, and just to show up on somebody's radar the way they are without always having to correct or make, something better than what it is. The idea is they're okay like they are. And so that's what we do.
So what year was it founded?
Founded in 2016, not very long ago, a few years ago.
Well, it's a tremendous accomplishment and all various programs to come up in that short a period of time.
Well, it's a team effort. We have a lot of people that are working here, and we went through a lot of people at the very beginning. We found that there were a lot of people that came from other places in the addiction industry that really felt they had things all figured out and intended to bring what they knew to us, and that wasn't what we were looking for. We're looking for plasticity. We're looking for people that can still, I was just talking to Brian Cressy, is the founder of this whole thing, so we owe all of this to his kind of innovative mind and his initiatives. And he and I spend a lot of time talking to each other, and a lot of the ideas have come from our combined efforts. And we were just talking this morning about not being afraid of making mistakes. And Brian he made the statement that he who makes the most mistakes wins. And so we just adjust. If it's wrong or it doesn't work, we stop for a minute and think, how can we make this better? And if we can't, then we'll abandon it or put it on a shelf and bring it out later. Maybe the timing's wrong. Maybe the people that we have involved are wrong. We don't need to discard it. We certainly don't need to self-flagellate.
Well, and that in itself is therapeutic, because then you're modeling for all of your participants that it's safe for them to try new things.
Yes.
And it's safe for them to give up the idea that they need to be right.
Right. And you consider that this model is, there's no billing that ever goes to a client here, whether they have money or insurance or not. It's all free to them. So that's quite different. The other models all,
That's miraculous.
Yeah, but it's not. I mean, there's a business model behind the whole thing that explains it, but it certainly is different. And for us, what it means is that the almighty dollar doesn't drive everything we need to do. Brian wanted us to put something together on a continuum of care that would mimic the human psyche. What best fits to fill the gaps in that we fall through. What bridges can we build? So we built the continuum first, and he said, then we'll look at how to pay for it. So that's what we've done. We put this together, and we found that we have to bridge many of the pieces ourselves. We have to pay for those ourselves, and we've found other inventive ways to do that, instead of basing everything on what we can bill for the individual, because a lot of people just fall off those tracks. They can't stay on them.
Yeah, there's a lot of power in that when you're not tied to how much you can get from each patient.
And, we do bill. So, I mean, there is back billing. We bill a lot of Medicaid programs, and about a third of our operating expenses are repaid through our billing, but nobody knows who is who. Nobody knows who's paying, who's not paying. So we have all kinds of stratas of classes. We've recently started attracting affluence. So we have people that are affluent who come in who are just fascinated with the kind of things we're doing. And still, which I haven't really brought up here, we're meaning-centered therapy, MCT. So at the core of everything we're doing is purpose and meaning, Viktor Frankl logotherapy. So that's required. And we're kind of waking everybody up to who they are and what their gifts are and how they can contribute and how they can be appreciated for those contributions and how they can appreciate other people's contributions. And it's at the core of everything we do. And then as people start to wake up to who they are, we have 7 different self-help programs that are available to them. And of course, all these groups, these therapeutic groups. So.
Well, and the other thing that's really beneficial, the more we're doing interviews here with the On Your Mind podcast for Journey's Dream and interviewing people who are integrative psychiatrists and functional medicine specialists and more and more you're hearing people who have observed that at the root of so many of these things that people call symptoms and problems is trauma.
Yeah.
And if we can look at the root cause, as they do from a systemic approach in integrative therapy or functional medicine therapy, and we're willing to say, you know what, this whole arena of human experience that we just poo-pooed and said, well, it's in the past, it's not having any impact. If we're willing to look there and see how that's feeding so many of these symptoms, now we've got a whole range of places we can do intervention and help the individual at a cause level.
That's right. That's what we say. We say that the substance use abuse is, or the substance use disorder is just a symptom of a deeper underlying problem, and we don't just treat the symptoms. We don't do that. It's only temporary. It's not sustainable. They receive no relief. When they continue to go out, it makes it worse and worse. And I have to say, Journey's Dream is probably, if I were to look at anywhere for a sister organization that would create an esteem in me that is equal to what I do here, it would be Journey's Dream. Journey's Dream does some of the most unbelievable things and helps people who need help in such a unique way that I have just never seen before, that it has inspired a lot of the stuff that we've done back here. Because I think there's the same idea, just charge at it, try it, let's see what works, let's look at the outcomes, let's figure out what is creating healing long-term, what's sustainable. I mean, you've got all of these things going on. Mark Haddis is just an individual that I put up in the clouds. He's just, and everyone who's involved with that organization, the level of competence is nosebleed. So it's an honor for me to be, in this forum where we can mention both our names in the same sentence or in the same phrase.
Well, I have the same feeling. The work you're doing there, every bit of feedback I've gotten about that place, and when I mentioned in the interview with Jam Alker that he should look into your place, he just said, I've got goosebumps because I'm going to be there this next Friday, and I love that place. And he had the same kind of comments about one of the things that comes across so clearly is the acceptance and the respect that is a foundation piece for anybody who walks into the Above and Beyond Family Center. So congratulations on what you're doing. I look forward to our next time to get together and have an update.
Thank you very much, Tim. I love being here. Put me on a calendar. I'll come back anytime.
All right, we'll do it. We'll connect again within a few months. The vision of Above and Beyond is to build an individualized treatment experience that is available to anyone in need, regardless of their economic status. Their clients and clinicians create therapeutic alliances that design and execute personalized programs of recovery that coexist side by side with personal development and growth goals. They believe that recovery is a process that requires meeting individuals right where they are, as well as addressing their environmental life circumstances, such as education, employment readiness, interpersonal relationships, and social reintegrative abilities and activities. Their philosophy is compassion, competence, and communal healing. They believe you can be well. With those simple words, the founders of Above and Beyond have brought together a seasoned team of staff members from the healthcare community. With decades of personal and professional experience in the ever-changing field of substance abuse, when they say we believe you can be well, they are stating their belief in everyone's ability to experience healing, hope, and health. What's needed is for them to be properly stimulated, educated, and supported. It's the expectation of communal success that drives them to provide their solid foundation of excellence in prevention and intervention to the most fragile and vulnerable people of Chicagoland.
You've been listening to the On Your Mind podcast, offered by Journey's Dream, where we support people through mental health challenges to a place of true and lasting well-being. If you love our show, We invite you to visit onyourmindpodcast.org to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our helpful resources. Thank you for listening.